So just recently, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal called "Forget What You Think Happiness Is." And one neuroscientist was interviewed for this article, and she noted how some mistakenly equate happiness with uninterrupted joy. And the neurologist, she went on to say that one of the myths about happiness is that people assume that it always conveys a sense of continual bliss, continual enjoyment. And she said that's really an inadequate definition of happiness. And here's why. It's simply not sustainable. I mean, physiologically, the physical body is unable to maintain continuous, constant, uninterrupted bliss. The neurologist said that genuinely happy people are emodiverse. I love that word. Emodiverse, meaning they can manage all different kinds of emotions. So happiness then is better defined as an overall state of satisfaction with the way life is going. But this, of course, leads to the question, and you may be thinking of this. What is it that truly satisfies? And Paul says in no uncertain terms, the answer is 1 Corinthians 11:1, imitating Christ. That's what brings overall life satisfaction, and that's true happiness. Now then, what does that look like practically speaking? Well, Paul gives us two behavioral activities. Freely enjoy in a spirit of gratitude, and then freely abstain for the sake of love. Paul's point is that of all the people on earth, Christ followers ought to be known for enjoying the fullness of God's creation. And Paul envisions believers permeating the cities and marketplaces and shopping spaces of the world. Paul envisions believers being invited to the homes of unbelievers. When an unbeliever invites you to your home, go. Verse 27, if one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you're disposed to go, just eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So again, Paul assumes that Christians will live such attractive lives that unbelievers are going to want to get to know them. Would you come over for dinner? Well, and when an unbeliever offers you hospitality, receive it. And when you go to their home, just eat whatever is set before you. Verse 30, Paul says, if I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? Well, I shouldn't be, is his point. Just receive it in gratitude. Verse 31, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Food, drink, baptisms, weddings, funerals, work, plumbing, accounting, romance, recreation, sports. It's all for God's glory. It's all for God's glory. And that is a way to display the satisfied life in Christ, especially with unbelievers. Whatever you do it to the glory of God. That's what brings satisfaction. Satisfied people are those who freely enjoy God's gifts for God's glory. Freely enjoy, Paul says, and then freely abstain. Freely enjoy God's gifts with gratitude and freely abstain from any of God's gifts out of love. Be so in love with Jesus that if you need to give up something for the sake of love, you can do it freely, and it's not that big of a deal. Because what matters is your edification, your growth, helping you on your way to heaven. That's more important than my personal preferences. The question that Paul wants us to just instinctively ask is, what will help? What will help? What will build you? What will edify you? That's why Paul says in verse 24, let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. My entire purpose in imitating Christ is to help others come to Christ. I want to live in a way that'll make it easy for others to find their way to heaven. I want to escort others into the presence of Christ. You are free to enjoy all of God's creation if it will help others follow Christ. And you are free to abstain from any of God's gifts if it will help others follow Christ. Do you hear, Paul?